Hello everyone. My name is Katriona Taylor, and I'm your speaker today. I don't know, Bhavna, if you're ready for me to start.
Yes, I am. Yes,
Okay, all
definitely.
right. Um, so, uh, so pleased to be here to talk to you all today. It's been a very interesting life that I've had, and I'd like to share some of my experiences with you, hopefully to give you some inspiration and some thoughts about how things can be for a person with Stargardts. So I was born into a family which travelled all over the world. My father was a very successful champion tennis player for Britain. His name was Roger Taylor, and we travelled the world as youngsters. But other than that, our lives were pretty normal. I had a sister and later a little brother, and we, did all the usual things that young children do, pranced around the living room singing and um, acting and doing those kind of things, telling jokes. Um, and life went on as expected. We settled in Wimbledon. It was an obvious place for us to move to because of the tennis connection. And my sister and I started at the local school, which was, in fact, Wimbledon High School. And I was studying there as a young child, age 5. But in my first or second year, my teachers started talking to my mum about the fact that I wasn't really following the board very well. So they started to realise there was something wrong with my vision. I would be able to see bits of it and kept complaining of not being able to find things or see the board. So I was taken to the ophthalmologist with my parents, and the lovely ophthalmologist told my parents that I was a hysterical child making everything up because the way that Stargarts worked, it meant that some of the time I was seeing fairly well, really, and probably compensating fairly well. So they couldn't quite work out why it was that I couldn't see some of the time, and then the rest of the time I was having a problem. And as my parents were told this, we walked out of the ophthalmologist's, and my mum said to me across the road, "Can you see that sign?" And the answer was, "I can't read it." So my parents went on for a year or so, having been advised this, telling me to try to look harder for things and try to help me a little bit more, but looking for things. And then they realised actually that there must be something wrong. It can't be quite, wasn't quite right. So they took me back to another specialist, and finally we had the news that I was diagnosed with Stargardt's disease. And in those days, there was no genetic testing for Stargardt's disease. So what the ophthalmologist actually said was that it didn't follow the classic progression, but he thought it was Stargardt's disease. And that's quite an interesting distinction, really, because I certainly felt when I was growing up that there was this feeling of slight doubt that it might not be Stargardt's disease and it might be something else. And certainly my mother was always, I think, searching and hoping that there might be something else she could find that was an answer to this problem. She's a problem solving kind of person, and she was looking for another answer. I remember later in my teens actually going to Guy's and St Thomas's to the head specialist there, the ophthalmologist, and having lengthy conversations about rare disease connected with chickenpox and uh, California, I forget now, sort of some pine trees or something that could cause all these conditions, and there was always a little element of doubt, and I think that was quite difficult actually because we're very lucky today. We have the opportunity to get genetically tested and have that clarity. So on went my life, and I was very lucky at school insofar as I was keeping up. I certainly wasn't able to read the board without very, very strong magnification. And in those earlier years, my magnification took me closer and closer to the page. And I'm sure some of you will empathize with that. And until I got through school, really without any much assistance from my school itself. And I decided that I was going to go on to university. And it was probably at university that my sight had got to the point now where reading and writing was getting very, very difficult. And I moved on to computers almost exclusively. I started to use speech software with OCR scanning products, which meant that I could scan in my books and type my work on a computer and submit it that way. Again, in those days, there were no books available in alternative formats. The printed word was very much still guarded by the publishers, and it hadn't got to the point where everybody was able to get audiobooks or scan books and have them provided in an alternative format. So it was quite hard work for me. I was doing a law degree at Brunel University, and I worked quite hard, but I managed to get my 2-1, and that was great. So moving on, I went to Nottingham Trent Law College. I decided that although I was very tempted actually to be a barrister, I decided that I was kind of drawn to the security, if you like, of the role of a solicitor because it's more of a 9-to-5 job. There was a guaranteed salary, and it seemed like that might be the place better for me. So I did my LPC conversion course, which is what it was called at the time, and acronyms change all the time for the legal qualification. But this was a 1-year course, which basically qualified me to go into the legal profession. And I think that was the first time in my education history, anyway, that I got some help from the wonderful dean who was there at the time. And that was very much because his daughter was disabled, and I think she had a problem with deafness. So he was very empathetic, he was very helpful, and he did actually really try to make it a comfortable journey through law school for me. And it was the first time I could kind of relax and think, oh, there's here someone helping me, which was good. And actually, I gained a distinction. I then tried to go into the City of London, which was extremely competitive. And like every other law student, I made several applications to get my training contract. And I was very lucky. I got offered 2 training contracts. They were called article clerk positions at the time. And I started work in a fabulous firm called Lawrence Graham. And I had some great inspiration there because I was introduced to a blind judge, whose name was Sir John Wall, who was a very, very impressive example of a lawyer who was fully blind. And I had been actually, during my time at university, I had made contact with John Wall, and I had gone to see him, done some work experience with him, and I'd seen him giving his judgments in the High Court, which was very impressive. So Lawrence Graham had previously had John Wall as a partner in the firm, and again, there was a small connection there because they had some experience of a visually impaired blind lawyer being very successful for them, and so they were quite open to employing me, and that was great because they were one of the top 30 firms in the city. And as I mentioned, I had an alternative offer from another firm, but that was my preference. So then I embarked on my training contract, which is 2 years of just really working so hard. I mean, they talk about people in the city taking their pound of flesh, and they really, really do. So I was in several departments in the firm, doing different specialties, as you do when you're training, commercial property, and I'm trying to think what else I did. Gosh, I forget. But in the end, I ended up in an area of specialism which I really liked, which was on the commercial law side. And it was intellectual property, looking at branding, and there was a lot of e-commerce businesses starting up in those days. So we were really kind of in the e-commerce bubble, advising everybody how to go online, how to do their businesses, how to protect their trademarks and their copyright. And it was exciting times. So I loved my training, and the firm were great insofar as they provided me with somebody who could do reading for me. I had a secretary who obviously typed up all our letters, and that was the usual situation for any lawyer. But it meant that it was one less thing, obviously, the lawyer themselves had to do. This situation worked quite well. But after a couple of years of working there, I really felt that I had worked so hard to qualify, to get to be a lawyer, and I was finding that some of the work was quite repetitive. And I started thinking, gosh, is this really what I'd like to do for the rest of my life? I was still in my 20s, and life seemed like it was a long way ahead to live. So I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll change firms, because if I'm feeling a little bit, like I'm not challenged enough or like I want to change, then the obvious thing to do is to change firms. And so I changed firms to an American firm which had come into the city. In those days, there were very few US firms established in the city of London, legal practices, and they were just starting to come in, a couple of partnerships. Deckert solicitors were one of the first. They were called Titmus, Saner, Deckert in those days. And I thought, well, that's going to be exciting. I'm going to jump on that American bandwagon and see how that goes in that firm. Actually, I had kind of challenged myself even more, because the Americans bill by the minute, which is quite a challenging thing to have to do. Account for every single minute of your time. It doesn't leave much time, can I tell you, for talking to your secretary or going to the ladies or doing anything much with coffee, etc. So I was billing, 50 plus hours a week, and I was having new challenges, but still my heart was kind of saying to me, is this really what you're going to do for the rest of your life? And I almost had a road to Damascus moment where I just thought, I'm not sure I want to be a lawyer anymore. And I thought really hard about it. I thought maybe I should write a book about law. Maybe I should become a law lecturer. Maybe I should go in-house, and an in-house position would suit me better. There were lots of great businesses around, like SmithKline Beecham, big pharmaceutical companies, where there are lovely roles that you could be involved in the business. And I was always very interested in business, very proactive in, finding new things. So having had that thought for a while, I had a conversation with my sister, and she said to me, well, you always liked to sing when you were young. And I laughed and I said, yeah. So she said, well, why don't you do what you want to do, what you'd really like to do? And I said, And the thought planted a seed. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know what? Why not give it a try? Why not see if there's anything that I could do with singing? So I quickly started to train myself in singing. I got put in touch with a great vocal coach who gave me a good grounding in singing. Obviously, I was pretty much a beginner at the time. And I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a few months preparing myself, and then I'm going to apply for some drama schools in the UK. We're very lucky. In London, we have some of the best drama schools in Europe, I think, and the world. So I thought, where can I get a training for my voice? Where can I learn to sing properly? And the answer was in these drama schools. And I had always loved to dance. And I didn't tell you that when I was a lawyer, we worked very hard and we played very hard as well. We were at night. We went off and we went to the wine bars and we enjoyed the city and all the nightlife that it had to offer us, including the salsa clubs and the tango clubs. And I was actually quite an avid dancer and very active at the time. So I needed three things to get into a drama school, I needed to be able to act, I needed to be able to sing, and I needed to be able to dance. At this stage, I could only dance. So I tried to teach myself with my vocal coach basic grounding in singing and some acting. And shortly afterwards, I put in my applications for drama school. So I tried the Royal Academy of Drama and waited for my application to land on my mat with an acceptance, and it did. But unfortunately, there was no acceptance in there. As I carried on, I was, I guess, feeling more restless as a lawyer. And I thought, well, this isn't working. Nobody's accepting me. I had my next application come through for the musical School of Musical Theatre, and again I was rejected. So that was very difficult. And I was thinking, what am I going to do here? I think what I'm going to do is, and I took the decision that I was going to hand in my notice as a lawyer anyway, because I'd got to the point really where I thought, nope, this career isn't for me anymore. And that the very next morning, I'm happy to say, there's a happy ending, because the Central School of Speech and Drama actually sent through their acceptance. And so I was very pleased to be accepted there. And that started a whole new chapter in my life. I was in my late 20s at this point, and I had been used to business meetings and sitting around a table discussing European law and all kinds of things. But I was not expecting what drama school was going to be like. I think within a couple of months, we were rolling around on the floor, pretending to be balls of fluff. We were training our voices, and we were doing method acting, all of which was a bit of a shock to my system. But I enjoyed it very, very much. And I am so grateful to Central, because the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama actually prides itself on being very individual and taking individuals, being quite nurturing of not producing the same products all the time. So the type of students that they were happy to have had their own characters and their own backgrounds to bring. And I think actually in my intake, although there was a lot of 18-year-olds, there were also some other students who had already done one degree or done something else and come to the drama school. So I didn't feel that I was totally unusual in the drama school. And we kind of all got through it together. And then soon after my drama school, I started going to open mic nights originally in jazz clubs. I was discovering my voice, and happy to say that it was there. When I auditioned for the drama school, I was really very, very nervous and very much a beginner. So it was an interesting leap of faith to take, and luckily it paid off. So in my jazz club days at drama school, as I say, I would go off and at night time perform in all the jazz clubs in London, and that was great. That was a great experience, and I started working really very hard to improve my skills as a singer and as a performer. And then I had some great luck in that I met some good musicians. I met various people who came into my life, and I became part of a band. Initially, the Neil Cowley Trio were my backing band, a great trio of jazz musicians in their own right. And I recorded 2 albums with them. And then, as bands do, people have different objectives. I was interested in becoming very much a solo singer, Katriona Taylor. And the other members of the band had their own projects in mind. So we kind of, I guess, we just decided that we would all go our different ways. And they went on with different projects that they had, and I went on to different projects. And so I then decided that I was going to be looking out for some musicians who really understood the kind of music that I liked and the kind of thing that I was wanting to write. I haven't told you yet about my songwriting. As part of my move towards performing and singing, I very much wanted to songwrite. I had a belief that I could do it, and again, I started trying to arm myself with the tools needed in order to be able to do that well. So I'm going to break talking to you now and do one song, and then I can tell you a little bit more about where I am these days, and after that we can open the floor to some questions, because I know some of you may have some questions. Okay, so this is a song which I wrote. It's called It Makes Me Want to Stay. I recorded it recently on my album. It's my 5th album to date. And yeah, this is just a really special track to me. It kind of makes me feel good. And it's about a relationship with a happy ending. So here we go. Hey, 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 I love the way that you love me. It's so sweet and wonderful. It's just like a ray of light. You lead me on, you light my life. 'Cause your heart is so big and beautiful. It makes me wanna stay, stay, stay. Love you every night and day. 'Cause I want you more and more. 'Cause your heart's what my heart's been looking for. Hey, 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 I love the way you say that our love is so full of tenderness. Hey, 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 I love the way you say that our love is so full of tenderness. It makes me wanna stay, stay, stay. Love you every night and day. 'Cause I want you more and more. It makes me wanna stay, stay, stay.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Um, so, yeah, where was I? I was talking about my early days as a singer. Very, very early on, I wanted to be a songwriter. I started songwriting. I had ideas that came to me, they just popped into my head, and I had to work out how I could put music to those words and lyrics that were coming to me in the tunes. I already knew, luckily, all about copyright law for intellectual property rights in songs and music, although the music business is an absolute minefield of layers of complexity, and getting your head around it is quite difficult. But I started learning the piano. I started teaching myself some keyboard skills, and I also, along the way, picked up a guitar, started to try to learn that. And very quickly, I was able to write music, and this was really what my soul was telling me that I needed to do, because there was something about creating a song that was just really amazing for me. It was like almost giving birth to something that was part of you, and then watching it fly in a musical context, putting a band, putting the music to it, and having an audience respond to it is like, it's one of the most amazing things I think you could ever experience. So luckily, I found that my songs were well received, and in those early days, I remember an agent coming to talk to me, and he said, "What you're doing, Katrina, you're performing Cole Porter, and you're performing, all the old great jazz writers, Irving Berlin, Gershwin, and then in the midst of it, you've got these songs that are your own, and somehow you're making it work, because they don't sound like they're not connected. They sound like it's one person delivering all those songs and bringing something of themselves to it." So fortunately, that was working out, because it's very difficult as a songwriter actually to find what you're about. I don't think there was any real method there. It just happened. It kind of came to me, those songs, and I put music to them. And I was lucky enough to be performing with some great musicians who could really give them life. And I wanted to be able to say that I had written those songs myself. So I found a way to improve my musicianship. I mean, you could say I applied myself like a lawyer to the job of becoming a singer. Oh, that's our doorbell ringing. We're going to have to pause there for a second. Do you want to turn that? Get that? Can you just stop it there? Yeah. Okay, great. So we have a connection to the front door into the studio. So delivery, probably Amazon, hopefully Christmas. So my songwriting started to develop, and this was really where my passion was. This was what I was about. And along the way, I developed my skills as a singer, and I can really say that it did take me time to get better as a singer. I hadn't been doing it really all my life, and I was practicing every day. I would practice scales, and just like a musician, an instrumentalist will practice their instrument for hours on end, I was there really putting in quite a lot of work at becoming a singer. And very soon after, I became a professional singer. I was engaged in many places to perform. I was lucky enough to go on tour with the amazing George Benson. When that happened for me, that was the stuff that dreams were made of. It was wonderful, and I was performing in front of very large crowds. I worked with other musicians from the jazz scene, American artists like John Toussaint on the saxophone, all kinds of people who, in jazz circles, were really quite a big deal for me. And the James Taylor Quartet, Leanne Carroll, various people. And that was all wonderful. It was going really well. But I was getting to a point in my life where I thought, I was performing, I was getting very exhausted, I suppose, also by singing. It's a very, very demanding profession. there is the glamour of being on stage, but behind the stage scenes, it's actually just a lot of hard graft, and there's no glamour at all. Touring from place to place, being in a bus with a load of musicians in a different place is not always the easiest way to live. So I decided that I was going to kind of settle down a bit and have children, and I decided that my current partner was going to be the father of my children, and we started trying to have a baby. And at that point, life threw me another curveball, as it is wont to do. I was lucky enough to become pregnant with my first child, my son, and at 37 weeks, I discovered that I had a lump in my breast. I went to my doctor and I said, "There's a lump in my breast. Should I be concerned about this?" And he said, "No, have some penicillin, and you have mastitis. Come back in, 10 days or something. Take this course of penicillin, come back." And I said, "But I'm supposed to be giving birth in 3 weeks, and I'm not sure that that sounds really very sensible." So I fortunately took myself off to the hospital, where they were wonderful, maternity hospital. They were looking after me for my pregnancy, and I said, I'm very concerned about this. And they had a second opinion done, and within about 3 days, I was diagnosed with very aggressive stage 3 breast cancer, which was devastating. My son wasn't born yet. It was my first child, and I had been looking forward to it, obviously, as everybody does. So within a couple of days, I was told that I had to have an induction, that I would give birth, and that then I would have an operation.
यूनिवर्सिटी
And
ये पहले से डिग्री 3 दफा
okay,
जगह पे डिग्री की हुई है
okay. Can we mute the screens, please? Mute the sound. Thank you. And I was due to have an operation, and then I had a very, very difficult period where my son was born. I was literally had just been operated on, had just about enough strength to stand up again, and they said it's time for chemotherapy and radiotherapy. And I can talk about it lightly now, but I can assure you that it is not a light undertaking in any way, shape, or form. And the hardest thing, I think, about the experience is, not only that I couldn't enjoy having my child, I wasn't well enough to show him off and look after him. I had some help from my family, and that was great. But it takes a couple of years also to get your energy levels back and really kind of recover from that type of situation. So moving on from that, I decided that I would sort of reinvent my singing career a little bit. I was still performing. I thought at that time, well, I'm probably not going to be a performer for much longer, because having breast cancer is really enough to change your life. But somehow the momentum of what I had created ticked over, and people were still asking me to perform here and there. So I did a little bit of performing. I managed to keep that going. And I also started a business as a vocal coach, because I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll teach in the daytime, and when my son, I can look after him and be around more. So I started a business as a vocal coach, and I really enjoyed taking on groups of students and private lessons with people, and got very much into that, and it was working very well. But we also decided that we would like 2 children. So amongst all this, I became pregnant again with my second child, and we were really delighted. And however, unfortunately, at the very early stage of this pregnancy, again, I was called back for a final check. I was about to be released from being monitored for cancer. Went for my final check, and I got called back just as I became pregnant. almost couldn't believe it, really. You couldn't make it up. So there I was in the very early stages of pregnancy, also knowing that I had breast cancer again. And I had to get through that pregnancy, which was a very, very tough experience. Again, I had to have various operations and various medical interventions, which were all consuming, very distracting from having my lovely daughter, who is now with us. And she's nearly 4 years old now, I'm happy to say. So all this time, during this time, I was finding it much harder to songwrite. I had had a period where the songs were absolutely flowing out of me. And people do ask about how you songwrite, and the only way I know is the way that I do it, and that is ideas come to me. I could be literally, swimming in the ocean or walking down the road, whatever it is I'm doing, and some melody with a load of lyrics just pop into my head. And then I had managed to make myself knowledgeable enough to be able to put music to that, to be able to put the chords to that, and the rhythms. I learned the drums for a period. I wanted to be much more able to tell my band, as a band leader, how to tell them what I needed from them. So I taught myself the drums. And I can't say I ever became a good drummer, but I taught myself enough to know exactly what I needed from my drummer and how to get that out of him, how to get the grooves into my songs, and how to write well. So I started after my daughter was born. I had written 1 or 2 songs, over the period. Really, I had a decade of difficulties, if you want to put it like that. A decade of things kind of not really flowing. So my songwriting wasn't doing too well. But once my daughter was born, it all started to change. And my songs flowed back to me, which was great. And I decided that I would make the long-awaited album, which I had been hoping to record for several years, but life and all the challenges that came with it had got in the way. Finally, in 2020, I was back performing quite a lot, actually, very busy, still doing the teaching, still doing various other things. Along the way, I was a magistrate. I worked as a magistrate for about 12 years. And the business side of being a singer, a promoter, and all my legal skills came in handy, all my contract drafting, all my negotiating skills, and my sheer grit and determination, if you like. So I was back performing, and that was starting to ramp up, but I decided I was going to take a break and record my finally awaited album. This was going to be my 5th album. Along the way, I'd recorded several. And we went into lockdown. My musicians were ready. They were all on hand, booked in. Very difficult to get 5 guys, actually. 7. There were 7 in the end. 7 guys all together, on a date where they can all do. But I'd put it in the diary and book the studio and the time, and we had lockdown. So my long-awaited album had to wait a little bit longer. But lockdown was quite interesting for me. Again, it was a time when I could take a little bit more time for my creativity and work on that. And I found that I was really inspired to write an album, prepare an album that was going to be called Blind Passion. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to celebrate the blind artists that there are, who in jazz there's a great tradition of blind artists, and really they're some of the best artists going. They've inspired millions of singers, musicians, and they have trailblazed for anyone with a visual impairment. So I thought, I'm going to write an album called Blind Passion because it talks about my passion, which in the music business you've got to have a lot of faith and a lot of if you didn't feel passionate about what you did, you just couldn't really keep going. It's such a tough business. So I selected some songs from great artists like Stevie Wonder, Jose Feliciano, Diane Shaw, and I put them onto the album along with some of my songs. And that became Blind Passion. When August 2020 came around, we'd just come out of lockdown, and the musicians, Julie, came back into the studio, and it was great because they were raring to go. They hadn't been able to play their instruments in the first lockdown with each other, and it was like a perfect storm. They played beautifully. Everything worked like a dream, and I had actually decided that at that time I was going to not only record Blind Passion, but record 10 other songs which I had written over the years and not got round to recording. So we had 3 days, and I think I must have sung. If I didn't sing for 30 hours, oh my goodness, I came home and I literally had a had a pack on my back, kind of trying to ease the muscle pain that I had managed to give myself from just standing and singing for hours and hours. But I decided that, 3 days in the studio, we were really going to go for it. And my musicians were amazing as well. They worked so, so hard. We were there for about 6 to 8 hours a day, just really performing. And as I say, we all had, luckily, the experience and the professionalism for it, so that we created 2 great pieces of music, Blind Passion and 10 more tracks. So that's really kind of where I am today. I've been launching Blind Passion. I've had a wonderful time touring that. I've also connected with Stargardt's Connected, and I'm so happy to find the charity, because during most of my life I have not known people who are visually impaired. I talked about my school, my university days, my law days. Really, I knew very few or no people other than the odd blind lawyer who had visual impairment. It wasn't something that was kind of in my experience, and my parents looked for help amongst various charities when I was diagnosed. I think their feelings about my diagnosis are probably not the same as mine. I was always a very happy, very determined person who was going to achieve what they wanted to, however many obstacles got in the way, I guess. So that's kind of where I am, and I'd like to finish talking to you now and play one more song for you. And this is a song which is in my new material. It hasn't been released yet, so I hope you like this. This is called I Feel Alive. It's all about. Life can be so gray. I play my part and still I doubt the purpose in my way. Then I catch a moment on the wind that sings to me. The world shows me its grace, and its beauty clings to me. I feel alive, I feel alive, I feel alive, I feel alive. its beauty clings to me. I feel alive, 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 I
Oh, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Katrina. I've got tears in my eyes and the biggest smile on my face. And I think I can say on behalf of everyone, it's just been so wonderful just listening to your story and sharing it. And just, I suppose, another great example of someone who hasn't let their setbacks, Stargardts and your diagnosis with cancer stop you, pursuing your dreams. And it's just so inspiring. And I'm going to make sure that he's in bed right now, my son, but I'll make sure he listens to this video for him to show that actually, I'm a mum of someone with Stargardts, and I'm always saying to my son, you can do whatever you want, but you've got to just try hard. And I think, it's your grit and determination that's got you where you are. So I think you're amazing. And thank you for being our ambassador to raise awareness of the condition and our charity and the amazing work that you do. And, you should feel really proud of yourself. And it's been,
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we know you and we've met.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Right. And we're going to have a concert, I think, now. I could listen to you all. Honestly, I was like, just do another song. I could listen to you all day. So we're going to have to try to speak about maybe doing a fundraising concert, or just when we can all meet up again. So thank you. It's
great.
So amazing. What we're going to do, so we're going to go over to questions, and Raya's going to be managing that. So people can either write in the chat or can use the hands up feature as well. So Raya, have you?
I'm here, and again, thank you so much. Me too. I had tears in my eyes too. It was amazing. We've already got one question, which is, when is it going to be released?
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh yeah, no, Blind Passion was released worldwide on the 8th of October this year in 2021, and you can find it everywhere really. But if you would like to support me, I please encourage you to, if you did want to buy anything to do with the album, to go through the website. I think a lot of independent artists now are saying that, because obviously if you buy the products direct, then it supports the artists. So yeah, please do listen to the music. It's that's what it's all about.
Is your website the one? Would you be able to? Is it the Katriona.com?
Yes. So let me tell you my website, because my name is spelt it's pronounced Katriona, which is how we're saying it. But my mum was from Scotland and my dad was from Sheffield. So between them, they came up with the name Katriona, which started with a K and had an O in the middle. So my name is spelled Katriona, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. And it's on the chat. We've written it down, www.katriona.taylor.com.
Yeah.
We've got some comments actually. Someone, Aaron K said, you're a role model to the VI community.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. And there's another question here. As a singer-songwriter and vocal coach, do you think that it's possible for anyone to learn to sing? That's for all of us hoping, being inspired by you, hoping to be able to achieve something.
I think it is impossible for about 99% of people, yes. I have come across one or two people who really struggle with their pitching and their hearing, and I think that's where music becomes more difficult. But vocally, I think everyone can improve. And but it is like anything, you know. It's funny, if you wanted to go and learn to play golf, you know, you'd have to go and hit a lot of golf balls, wouldn't you? So people think they can just start to sing and, you know, it's easy, but actually you got to kind of put in the hours. That's what I say to my students. If they want to get really good, then they got to work at it.
Okay, we're going to start working now then. Here's a question from a parent, Kirsten, and I think it's relevant to all parents. You talked about your parents having a very different attitude to yours in respect of your diagnosis with Stargardt's. What do you wish they had said to you as a child about your diagnosis and why? And this is mainly because the person asking has a daughter who was recently diagnosed, and she wants to be really supportive.
Okay, so I think when my mum in particular found out, she was very, very upset, and I saw her crying and I saw her sadness. And as a very young child, you know, I didn't really understand what that was all about. So I would say, obviously, try to protect your children a little bit from that. What would I have wanted my parents to say to me? Well, my parents were never going to kind of let my disability get in the way for me. They were extremely strong characters, a lot of tough love in there as well. So they never limited me. They would always just expect me to do it and get on with it. So I guess I would have liked them to have a little bit more empathy and perhaps offer more help. That's not to say that I wanted them to do things for me, but there were ways I think it would have been easier for me to have a little bit more help offered along the way, and maybe work with the schools, for instance, work with some of those institutions that the younger education involves to kind of give you a few more comfortable ways of working, rather than just always having to, I was always having to kind of, you know, I did everything at the same time as everybody else. And it became easier when I was at university and law school. I got extra time in exams for the first time, but not in my A-levels and my O-levels, for instance. So I think, I mean, as a parent myself, I would say the talk that you give to your children, the language that you use is important. Yes, not to limit them, but also to be empathetic and understand that things might sometimes feel more difficult. They may even be more difficult, but there is a way that together you can approach it and you can get around things. And there's certainly the sky's the limit in most cases.
Thank you so much for that. I think one of the things that we found through all the members in Stargardt's Connected is that parents often struggle more than children because firstly, they feel so guilty. Secondly, they want to be able to be supportive. They don't quite know how. And I think just listening to you and listening to people who have made huge successes of their lives is so important. I just want to check with Kirsten. Did that answer your query?
Yeah, that was really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? That was the last question on the chat section. Are there any other questions? If not, I just want to again say such a huge thank you to you. It's people like you that help us, our community, to believe that we can achieve. So I'm really so grateful. And what a fabulous Christmas, I'm going to cry. What a fabulous Christmas present that was.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
We do have a hands up here from Nafisa, I've just noticed. So Nafisa, did you want to ask a question? You can either type up in the chat or just, yeah.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this session today. It was really inspiring. And I'm sure that now you are definitely a really good role model for all of us with Stargardt's. I would like to ask more about who inspired you. What what was the thing that always, drove you to continue doing it when different things came in your way? Sometimes I feel as though when my eyes are hurting or something, and I sometimes feel really in despair and thinking, I can't do anything. There's nothing to drive me to continue. So what was it that you used, or who inspired you really to continue? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a big question. I would say my parents were very influential on me insofar as they themselves, and my father got to the semi-final of Wimbledon 3 times. You don't become a sportsman of that caliber without being very, very determined. And I think that's one of the things I saw in my parents. So I always had that approach to life, to never quit, keep going even if it's hard. In my own self, there are times when, we find things difficult. Of course we do. And I think that the thing to do is just to be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself and acknowledge, actually, this is hard. It's okay. Everybody would find this hard. Anybody in your circumstances is going to find it hard. And that's okay. And then you just take one step at a time and you find your way to where you have to get to. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you for that. Was the question answered? I'm assuming it was.
Yes, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Nafisa. And once again, thank you, Katriona, and thank you for being our ambassador. I can't think of a better ambassador to have.
Thank
really
you.
grateful. Thank you
very much. Yeah, thank you. Are you going to? I'm going to stop the recording now. I'm just going to do this.